Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Data Faces podcast that brings the human stories behind data, analytics, AI, and marketing to the forefront. I'm David Sweenor, founder of Tiny Tech Guides, and your host for today's conversation. So today's guest, we have a rare treat. We have Judit Szabo, head of global demand gen and operations at Endava. She's got deep experience across a wide variety of B2B SaaS and IT services company. She got a sharp mind and a thoughtful perspective on how AI is reshaping the way we, think, work, and lead. So we're going to talk about this thing people may have heard of. It's called AI. It's not a tool, and it's a wake-up call. So, Judit, welcome to the show.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
I'm glad. Thank you for joining. So, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and your company?
Amazing. So I've been in B2B tech marketing for 15 plus years. Before that, I started in PR and media, but really got into tech marketing. And my sweet spot is demand generation, marketing operations, everything automation in terms of lead gen and lead nurturing. I'm currently at Endava, which is an IT services and consultancy firm serving enterprise customers in the B2B space, selling across a variety of industries. I guess we are exposed to the market volatility that is so prevalent in the tech space. And yes, we've been heavily experimenting with AI, not just in the marketing organization, but across the board. It's a 12,000 people company. We've been known for custom software development and agile development. So it's right in the sweet spot of how AI can be disruptive for an IT services company.
Well, fantastic. And so, Judit, I want to just maybe part of this show is to really bring the human stories behind, folks in marketing and AI together. So when you were young, did you aspire to grow up to be the global head of demand gen and operations, or how did you get on this path? I didn't know anything about marketing myself, so I'm just curious how you got into it and what other career path could have you jumped into?
So my career path was not linear at all. I graduated way back then in English and French studies. I stayed at the university to do PhD in English. And it was quite possible that I would have spent my life in the academia. But then luckily, by the end of my PhD studies, I had a moment of reflection where I thought I'm maybe a little bit more pragmatic than this domain. So I thought big and was thinking, all right, fine. So if not this, then what? I've just wasted 8 years of my life in studying all of those. And anyhow, I thought, fine, I want to use the language. So that was a given for me. I'm Hungarian by birth. So I used to be still living in Budapest at that time. So I went to the big black book of PR agencies back then, and that's 2004, and looked up all the PR agencies that were owned by British or American companies. And I wrote a lovely cover letter saying, I have nothing to do with PR, but I speak good English, I have good communication skills, and I'd love to work in PR. And I think that was so so bold that a week later I worked at a PR agency. So I really learned PR and media. I didn't study it at the beginning. And then from PR, I got from agency, I went in-house, and I was a marketing communications lead for a really cool art design school. Anyhow, fast forward 8 years, I thought I should really have a marketing degree now that I've been doing it for a couple of years. So that's when I did a postgrad MA in strategic marketing. And then I had my first child in 2009, which was a slap in the face because I couldn't go back to my workplace unless I went back full time. And so, I always looked at these points in time as, that's always brings you opportunities rather than like a full-on, challenge. So what I happened to be doing, again, reconsidering what am I going to do, now, and I had the chance to join a startup that was selling Microsoft Cloud solutions to telcos in Central Eastern Europe. And that was a time when I had no idea what cloud meant. I remember working at that company as a market lead and was sitting in all of these leadership meetings where the founders of that company were ex-Cisco people. They were all very technical, and they were, throwing these words around, on demand and cloud and all of that. And then so I said, can we stop here? And then someone explained me what cloud means. So that was 2009, and quite embarrassed that I had to ask that question. But I guess that was my task, to translate all of that technical verbiage into consumable messaging. And anyhow, that's how I got into marketing and tech marketing, and that was the first assignment. And then I moved to the UK and worked at a cloud hosting company, and then Tipco Software, where of course the two of us had the great pleasure of working together. And after that, got into Endava.
Yeah, the rest is history. Well, that's a fabulous story of how you arrived there. And I don't think anybody's career is really linear. It zigs and it zags, and you adapt. And but you mentioned cover letter. Now brings us to the topic of today's conversation. I don't think anybody's actually writing anything anymore. So if we can remember way back to 2022, things changed. There's this little tool called ChatGPT, and it really captured the world by I think by surprise. So how has AI served as a wake-up call for professionals in IT services and consulting? And really, what are we waking up from?
So I think, again, even just you and I, we used to work at a company where we constantly talked about AI, machine learning, programmatic automation or predictive modeling. Personalization is not new. It wasn't new. We did that for our customers. We used it in marketing. Marketing, as a profession, has been using it for a while. I think what was very new what is very new with generative AI is it's accessible for everyone, and it's not a choice anymore. But if you don't treat it as part of your workforce, as your teammate, as your assistant, then you are already behind. And the other thing that I think it does is kind of shakes things up and then levels things out. It kind of puts everyone back to the same, starting line, and like users of it, just simple business users of it. I think in the past, AI and ML models, that was something very technical, geeky at the background. You understood it, and then I was trying to turn it into marketing materials. But like, you have to be very technical, like a data scientist, to understand how it worked. Otherwise, you were just benefiting from the output of it. Now, what it does is, like, you use it in your everyday life. And I think if you don't use it, then you are already behind, and that should be a wake-up call. If you don't treat it as part of your teammate, you don't experiment with it, and then you're going to fall behind.
That's interesting. You said it sort of resets everybody to the starting line. And past guests have mentioned this. So like, let's just say everybody has. We're at the average now. We're all the mean. So what makes people, you think, stand out? Anybody can type in a prompt, and you can get better or worse results depending on your prompt. But like, let's say BDR, outbound sequence or something, you just type that in. So like, what's going to like differentiate people if we all have this average baseline of, hey, write me a outbound sequence, and boom, it comes out in 5 seconds?
So I think contextuality or contextual awareness is still very important. If you don't put the prompts in right, then your output is going to be garbage. If your underlying data is bad, then your output will be bad. If your underlying infrastructure is not modern and agile, and the data points are not talking to each other, then again, your output is going to be faulty. So I think it doesn't negate the importance of the human and the creativity that if we use it in a marketing context, for example, yes, you can use it for content creation, for content ideation, for personalization, your research, some low risk type of contents like a cover letter. You can easily
Sure.
easily create it, but I certainly recommend that you never take the human out of the process. Of course, you hear about fully autonomous workflows, and maybe in some contexts they work, but I think a human will always have to be there. And I think this contextuality comes into the picture when you need to know the outcome you are looking for. We use it, for example, for image creation, but it's our very experienced designers who are doing that work. And the benefit of it is that with very precise series of prompts, you can have an amazing AI generated image that's going to be one of a kind. You will have never ever seen it. It's not from a stock image pile, right, that the other company is going to use it. It's unique to you because it's the end product of your creative mind.
Right.
Right. But the benefit of is, for example, Endava, for example, is a very human-centric, people-centric company. We have 12,000 employees, and this has been very important for us. So 18 months ago, when we relaunched our website, for example, we put a lot of effort, energy, and time and money in taking pictures of our employees across the globe in different locations, different settings. And if you look at our website, we have loads of those images across the website, real people. You might even spot myself. But then you get into the challenge of what if someone leaves, and what if someone leaves with the ask of, hey, I actually don't want to be associated with your company anymore. Can you take me off? And fine, okay, it's doable, but imagine all the hassle that comes with it. Whereas if you had a creative idea of what images do I want to see on my website, what are my brand guidelines, then you create a one-of-a-kind AI generated image that's yours. It's never ever used, never going to be ever used by anyone else. But then again, I wouldn't be able to create that output that our designers do, because they have the context where they want to use it. They have the vision of what they want to see. And they have the knowledge of how to put the prompts together.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting because I found I struggle with generating images myself because I don't have the vocabulary. I'm not an artist. Like, so if I say, hey, show me something in the style of Rembrandt, I don't even know what that means. So I can't even describe to the tool what I want. And so I don't have that expertise. So that brings up, a question. What sort of human skills do you think maybe is coming more valuable, in this age of AI?
So I think this is the age of the survival of the nimblest.
Survival of the nimblest. I like that.
Because you can't apply AI on rigid only one time models, or it breaks down, or it's not going to be efficient. So I think users of AI and maybe marketing users of AI would need to be very creative, continue to be very creative. I think they need to be strategic as well. I always, of course, we all hear like, oh, marketing can now go away. We can automate all the workflows. Everything can be done by AI automation, personalization, all of that. Agents can do our job. And then I always, laugh and smile when I hear that, because I would challenge anyone in the organization to come and create maybe an agentic workflow for automating a lead management process for us, and how many aspects you have to think about. And it's doable, and we are actually experimenting with creating an agentic AI automated workflow for our whole kind of lead management. But the amount of data sources you need to integrate for that to be efficient, essentially you have to nail your process before you can scale it. And if you haven't nailed that process before, if you don't have that experience of what and knowledge and strategy of what am I looking
Mhm.
for? What do I want to solve? Again, with the designer, like they know they have it in front of their virtual eyes of what they would like to see. Therefore, they can create those prompts. You and I, we
Right.
can't.
Right.
I mean, I have it in my mind as a vision of what I would want this agentic autonomous workflow for lead management look like. And internally, actually, it's been taking us weeks or maybe months now to come to the POC stage, because of course the developers or the people that I need to build it for me, I need to walk them through the process. I need to bring them along my vision of like, this is what I'm looking for. And then, what data sources do we need to plug in? What's going to enrich my data? How is that going to look like? And then what stages am I going to introduce and still keep the human in to ensure that I comply with regulations, or that my output is still contextual. Again, I don't, again, services companies like Endava actually strive in the human
Right.
value. And so that is one thing I also see staying, or maybe even strengthening nowadays, that yes, certain processes, certain tasks can very easily be replicated with AI. And if you choose the use cases right, and you don't try to throw it at everything, then you are able to increase productivity.
Mhm.
But I think what's becoming more and more important for customers on the market as well is the human voice. Nothing replaces that. Nothing compares to that. And again, in services, in consultancy, we see that maybe more than in software. If you are in SaaS and you've got you a free product that can, you sign up for a demo and then you can freely access it, maybe I can imagine that there's a quick autonomous workflow that can lead you there. You sign up for the free trial, and
Right.
I mean, at least your foot is in the door, and then you can start experimenting with the product. But services solutions that we are selling, you need the trust of that customer. You need the buy-in of the C-level, the board, to come along. So I can't automate that. I need to introduce the human element at certain touch points of that very
Right. Right.
cyclical and self-serving kind of funnel that nowadays buyers are going through. And yeah, that is the most crucial. And when I speak with other like customers or other services companies, they confirm the same, that in a way, for example, the importance and prevalence of physical events have come back into the picture after all the COVID wave of everyone and everything went digital. Now physical events come back into the mix. And then someone picking up the phone and trying to have that meaningful, really truly meaningful conversation with you, understanding your business needs and the value that a customer can bring to you. I mean, I right now I haven't seen an AI workflow that would be able to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's so variable, and even if you nail it, what I've just seen in my own workflows that I use, the models are changing, the systems are changing so fast. What worked yesterday sort of doesn't work at all today because
Yeah,
they're adding in reasoning or
yeah.
whatever. And so I think there's a lot to think about. So, which brings me to my next question. So, it sounds like you've done a lot with AI personally and at your company, but what do you think companies overestimate what it can do for their business, and maybe underestimate what does that reveal about us?
Sorry, you broke out.
Sorry. So what I mean, what do you think we've overestimated about what AI can do for the business? And
Yeah.
maybe the corollary is what's that? What have we underestimated about what that reveals about us personally? I think I'll just kick it off. Like, I think it was going to solve world hunger. Like every new technology, this is great. We're going to automate our jobs away. We mentioned that, but
Mhm.
when push comes to shove, there's a lot companies need to think about.
Yeah. So I think, again, because it's so helpful to accelerate and increase productivity, um, i- the human capital and creativity, again, will free up. And if we do it right, I think it will maybe improve the world. That mindset can be used on more efficient, more effective tasks than being bogged down on the very hands-on, maybe resource intense tasks. So I think, again, finding the right applications of it that can then accelerate those steps that are very resource intense, low risk. Maybe even if it's governance heavy, you can apply those steps and prompts that ensure that the governance is met, or security standards, all of that. But I think what humans will be able to focus on more is the strategic growth, or again that contextual knowledge of your business, for example, the value that it brings, to have that vision. I'm not too sure that a bot or an AI agent is able to perhaps able to suggest, if you feed it with relevant enterprise data and information about your business and all of that. Perhaps it can suggest, certainly, ways to go forward. Um, but how many times do we hear that sometimes it's a bold idea that makes a company stand out? I don't know how much an AI model can be bold, because I think they are trained to be reliable, and it's based on historic knowledge and data. So I don't know if, for example, boldness is very
Yeah,
much
sort of
uh,
trained to be
relevant.
trained to be average, right? And so, but
Yeah.
you mentioned something very interesting to me. So this is going to free up human capital, and you just, from what
Mm.
I'm seeing from my vantage point, I think you said survival of the nimblest. I
Mhm.
think teams are really operating on skeleton crews these days. They're
Yeah.
shrinking,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of workforce disruption. So, and, we know that Bill Gates for years has been promising us the 4-day work week, through automation.
Mhm.
I don't ever
Right.
see that happening. I feel us that the individual PMMs or demand gen people within companies, they're
Yeah.
just getting more stuff piled on their plate.
Yeah.
I don't know if that promise of me being able to exercise thought in a company will
Yeah.
ever come back. I don't know. What's your experience with that?
Uh, I'm still a true believer of, again, the human values. And another aspect that came to mind. I'm responsible for a website, for example,
Mhm.
and I mean, for a long time. So I always put a lot of effort in it, search
Sure.
engine optimization, ensuring that our messaging is optimized and whatnot. And then what do you hear and read nowadays? What are these models feeding off? Of course, the organic traffic is not so much going to your website now, but then your end goal is to show up in the end results of these Gen AI
Right.
search results. And so, but then what they are saying, and I will believe them because I don't technically really fully understand
Mhm.
how this works still at the background. But what they say is, for example, Reddit is very, very influential
Yep.
in those results. And what's fueling Reddit? Human
Right.
feedback and peer reviews. And again, that's the human, the true voice and experience of humans. So and I think probably these search engines are kind of updating their models now to sieve out that's very sounding and reading very automated, and then
Mhm.
what's that kind of pile of content that provides contextual relevance. And I think that's only achievable by human interactions. Not saying that you wouldn't use AI. Again, you can, and you can
Sure.
ideate and then find ways that you haven't touched upon just yet or whatnot. But that tone of voice, for example, that's truly for a person or for a company, that contextual relevance, or if it's pulling in so much insights from peer reviews or Reddit and human experience, then um, I'm not too sure you can fully influence that with AI automation.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. So, given that, you mentioned this, mentioned contextuality a few different times, and bold decisions. I think you mentioned earlier, bold, like, is an AI going to come up with that? No, maybe it will give me an idea that maybe I'll spark a neuron in my brain to think of
Mhm.
something
Yeah.
interesting. But do you think there's a risk of people losing sort of the why, behind, data driven decisions, is because, hey, the model told me to do this, so this is what I'm going
Mhm.
to do. Is there a risk to companies and individuals out there in the workforce?
I think there is truly a risk because again, I think there are a few like foundational requirements for an AI model to work. The data input. Again, if someone disregards that or it's not bulletproof,
Hmm.
then immediately, yes, the model will churn out a result for you. But if you don't know and you're not aware enough of, oh, actually, has the data input included this, or was it just one data source in like maybe in a I think most enterprise companies are still struggling with data connectivity, in their
Oh,
own
sure.
backyard,
That's
right?
that's never going to go away. That's the only thing I
Yes.
know in life.
I agree. So there's always some complexity. So again, if and I actually, because I'm responsible for marketing operations, data
Hmm.
analytics, and reporting, and I did experiment with trying to use, well, we use GPT across the company, so that's a safe environment. So I thought, fine, like what if I either haven't managed to find the right set of prompts, or because our data set is still in like different places and I haven't
Right.
managed to collect it all. I found that the outcome I was testing it for certain scenarios, and I didn't think that the outcome was actually accurate. But I know that because I've done the deep analysis
Right.
myself. So I was
Right.
kind of just testing it, like, okay, would it give me the same output? And it doesn't. Again, maybe I'm not using it the right way, and I should experiment with it more. But so again, a couple of these like foundational requirements that can really skew your output, like the data connectivity, and then that you create a model that is flexible. Again,
Hmm.
if you try to create it for this is how it should look like and nothing else, and it's not a dynamic model maybe, or again, that's why agentic AI and agentic workflows are so exciting and inspiring for me, because there you are trying to train an agent to just one task, and then you are then adding multiple agents together to then talk to each other and then constantly interact with each other. And perhaps that's actually more efficiently done than humans would do, because humans would take much more time, or maybe quality assurance. It's never 100% if it's done by a human. Maybe an AI
Right.
can actually do that much better. So you can accelerate certain steps, but I think I would always have, at least at the beginning and the end of the process, I would always have a human at the beginning to ensure like that you put the vision forward, whether it's in a prompt, for example, of what are you
Hmm.
looking for, and then at the output of like really reviewing it and then just contextually and then really like logically consuming it, like, does this make sense, like, is this correct? So I would never use it for like, okay, this is for granted, and I make decisions based on that.
Yeah, no, it's tough at scale though, and the agentic AI is a whole nother, we could have another whole show on that, but I like, what could possibly go wrong? Like, I can't even get a single prompt to give me a non BS answer half the
Mhm,
time. So imagine like
mhm,
8 of these or 10 of these or 12 of these string together for this
mhm.
butterfly effect of cascading errors. And I think you're going to get
Yeah.
gibberish out there. But you've come back a few times to this, the human, and I agree. Human in the loop is so extremely important. And so how do you balance this drive for automation and efficiency and productivity with human? And if you're making, like, there's a couple different types of, these tactical decisions, like, at scale, can a
Mhm.
human review everyone, or how do you even approach that? Like, I think the big strategic decisions, yeah, I'm going to help augment it. We're going to think about this, but then there's all these other decisions that maybe they're happening more frequently, operational
Mhm.
decisions or tactical decisions. How does one monitor that at scale to make sure I'm not putting gibberish out in, if say I automate emails or images or whatever?
I mean, that's where I would put these experienced humans as kind of the reviewers of the outputs or the models or whatnot, to like uh, as a spot check or like sanity check, to ensure that it works, and then have that person kind of run that model through a couple of examples, and then execute, and then, and if you're confident about the output, then it can probably be unleashed for that task or for that project. And then I don't think it will take over all the tasks. Again, I don't
Right.
think it can be thrown at everything. But you can find those repetitive, low risk tasks that it can help. Um, and then I guess there's a lot of governance around it and compliance and whatnot. So
Yep.
we've had the whole company, all 12,000 or what employees, go through an AI training, and
Oh
then
wow.
everyone now has access to enterprise GPT. But you can't get access to the tool until you do that training, and it's quite extensive. I mean, even
Sure.
you as a data scientist would find snippets of data there that's like, oh, okay, that's something I never knew, and then you have to do the tests and all that to ensure that you're compliant. And yeah, we have like 3,000 GPTs now built custom within the company. So every pockets of the
Wow.
organization is used. And then, of course, the most widely used is the kind of the GPT that helps you find the GPT to
That's
ensure
always
that
the way.
you're not recreating the wheel. Like, is there a GPT ready for blah blah blah? And then, oh, okay, there is, fine. So I can go to that to you, and then
That's funny. It's like the meta GPT. I can't I have so many streaming services on my TV. I can't find I know I want to watch a show, but I have no idea which one it's on. So I'm like going through there, and I need
yeah.
a way to search over there. So we're getting close to the end of the time. I'm going to ask one more question before we wrap. But as a leader, in marketing, how do you encourage adoption? I think there's different. I've seen a lot of different people, but without feeding fear or resistance. People, is it going to take my job? That was my most popular blog post, and it was like, is it going to take my job? Maybe. So how do you balance this need for automation? And there's humans, there's people that their livelihood, is caught up in work. So how do you balance that as a leader?
Well, in general, I like to inspire people, and the way we rolled out, for example, GPT within the marketing organization is, it was about 18 months ago. We were one of the first teams who got access to enterprise GPT, and we were able to create a little kind of tiger team or a group of
Okay.
experts, and that wasn't mandatory. We spread the word of like, okay, we're launching this. It's going to be a pilot. This is potentially going to be very influential and important, but like it's not mandatory.
Right.
Come if you want, otherwise no. And then of course we needed certain players, so we needed a developer who would build these GPTs for us. We needed to ensure someone from content is there, someone from brand, like, so we've got a nice group of people, and then we just started to compile the use cases, again, like inspiring each other of what could we use this for. And then we prioritized them and started to build the first few. And then we constantly shared it out with the others. So they got inspired, like, oh, okay, well, now I can create personalized, I don't know, messaging for my personas. Like, remember how much time we spent on those,
Oh
David?
yeah.
Way back
Yes.
then, God
That's
Almighty,
right.
we had these templates of like, all right, let's build it out for the IT leader, for this or that, the data
That's right.
scientist. It
That's
took
right.
us months, and was really hard. Like, imagine that job is now done in, I don't know, a couple minutes.
Yeah, it's
But
much
then
faster
again,
for sure. But you got to
but
add
then
that
again,
authenticity to it. You get the
yeah,
average, and then how do you make it punchy and level it up?
yeah. But again, I think, yeah, we would still need you in the process as the the expert to then review and just spot those. Oh, actually, that doesn't make sense. Like, let's refine that area, and like, let's check into
Hmm.
that. So anyhow, back to how to take the fear out of it. it's kind of what we did. Like we inspired others, and then more and more people started to use it. But then we were also very sort of matter of fact about the fact that this is not an option anymore.
Right.
And I happened to attend a couple of these industry events, and then someone, I think it was a LinkedIn event, someone reported the results of a survey of, now on LinkedIn, for example, one of the most highly sought after skills of a marketeer is whether you have AI skills.
Right.
So again, it's not going to take your job, because you will have to work with AI. But if you don't experiment with it, and you're not already there at the leading the pack, you will fall behind.
Right.
I think, right? So again, inspiring people with these kind of thoughts of and being firm enough that I think, I mean, it's already a teammate. It's already part of the workforce. So there's no more deliberation anymore of like, oh, should I do this or not, or when or how. It's like, as early as possible, start to
Right. Get started today.
start to get your hands dirty. But also that I think that the fear, I like to take the fear away from the fact that, like, it's not going to completely take over like your job. It's not going to completely automate our workflow. So to encourage people that, okay, there's no fear that I'm going to lose my job, or that I won't be able to add value. But then we need to find that right balance of, how do we scale things up, or how do we add it to our existing workflows, so that the human can drive us further. But the
Sure.
value, the creativity, the strategic, the contextual knowledge will, I think it's still with the human. But we probably can't even imagine how much smarter and quicker our processes are going to be in a year. Like, I think none of us would have, and none of us would have imagined when GPT first got available for everyone, that in, what was it, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, I don't know, that we are
2022.
going
Yeah.
to. And I think
Okay.
that's the exciting part of it, that again, it has been there in the tech market for so long, but I think it was the privilege of a few data scientist minds, and now it's accessible for everyone. And if you're nimble enough and inquisitive enough and create, like, I don't know, experimental enough, then I think you will be able to shoot ahead earlier, because it level set the talent.
Right. Okay. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation, Judith. Thank you for joining. Is there like one thing that you'd like to leave the audience with, before we sign off today? What's the one thing you'd want them to walk away with?
And I guess it has to be around AI.
It could be stay human. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't underestimate the power of the human connections, because I think that's only going to become stronger somehow, weirdly, in a very very counterintuitive way. It might become more important.
All right. Well, I love that. Well, Judith, thank you for joining the Data Faces podcast.
My
A
pleasure.
fascinating conversation, and looking forward to having you maybe on a future show.
Thanks so much, David. Thanks for having me. It's a
Cheers.
pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Awesome.